Okay, who talks first?
Oh, you can. It's up to you.
Okay, so y'all that are in my class, you know me, obviously. This is my husband, the world famous Ben Burgess. As you can see here, put your head down.
Oh my
You
god.
can see his books.
Not necessary. Okay.
They're behind us.
For people in my class, this is my wife Jennifer, and she is also a philosophy professor here. So
But not famous.
yeah. So some of you may have taken her classes before, and since we are both covering the Gettier article in our classes, we thought it might be fun to do this together.
Yeah.
So, if do you
Go,
get
go, go.
okay?
There's a cat back there.
Yeah,
Right there.
yep, that is a cat. So, people in my class, we just read the A.J. Ayer article.
Also in my class.
Okay, well that works out too.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're on the same page.
So, basically, Ayer in that article is laying out his theory of knowledge, and
He's giving his conditions, the boxes that have to be checked in order for someone to be able to say, I know.
So those boxes are that you have to believe it, and it has to be true, and
you have to be justified. You have to have the right to say you are sure.
so this is the justified true belief theory of knowledge, which is a really popular theory.
JTB! Sorry.
Really popular theory of knowledge. Goes back to Plato. And Gettier in this article is throwing a huge monkey wrench in it. This is something that people that was very widely accepted, and people had different ideas about the justification part, what you needed to have to be justified for knowledge, but they pretty much thought that this is the right definition of knowledge. This is the right way to think about it.
Well, like Ayer said, it's really hard to come up with a set of conditions, and best judgment.
So, in this article, Gettier, it's a very short article, and in fact, I think I remember that when he first put it out, he didn't even I think he was just doing it because he was being pressured to publish something.
Yeah, he sent it to a journal in South America, which if you are in my class, you know because that is in the PowerPoint. Yeah. He tossed it off due to pressure. He asked someone to translate it for him, and he sent it off to South America, which, no offense, is not where the premier philosophy journals are located. But he was like, I just got to get it into something. They'll take anything. Somebody translate this, send it off. And
so yeah, he thought, this is just something he did because his university, wanted him to publish something somewhere, and so he did it to get them off their backs. But then this has become there are hundreds of articles responding to this for decades and this is seen as a huge problem now for epistemology.
And guess what? Gettier never had to publish anything ever again. This man is my hero.
So, Gettier is trying to show, when you do that, there are counterexamples to the justified true belief theory of knowledge. What a counterexample means is an example that shows that the theory is wrong. So, if you say, all cats are white, the cat you just saw is a counterexample. And so what his counterexamples are supposed to be are cases where you have justification, you have truth, and you have belief, but it really doesn't seem like you have knowledge.
No. No, it doesn't.
So, do you want to take us through the examples?
Okay, well, first, we need to go through a little logic in order to understand this first example. So, if you're justified in believing something, let's say Ben is justified in believing that it's raining outside. Whatever you need to feel like he's justified, he's got that. He's got the weather report, he's looked out the window, blah, 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 whatever. Now, if he infers from this that if he goes outside, he will get wet, then that is also justified. Because if he's got his justified belief, something is inferred from that, that belief then is itself justified. Now, I put this in my PowerPoint. Y'all gotta, okay, that is not Gettier's example, and it does not show why Ayer's definition does not work. It is my example, and it is only intended to show the path of the logical inference. It is not itself a Gettier example.
Yeah, so what Gettier examples are, they all have this format where somebody is justified in believing something because they have good evidence for that thing. And then they infer something from that, so they're justified in believing that. And then it turns out that the original thing that they believed, that they inferred the other thing from, wasn't true. So, but it's still the case that the thing that they believed at the end of the process is true, but it's just a coincidence. So for example,
so what they do have a justified true belief. They check all of Ayer's boxes, but they do not have knowledge. That's the idea.
Yeah, so there's the guy who believes that the person who will get the job has what was it, 10 coins in
10 coins in his pocket.
Okay, never remember the number of coins. So 10 coins in his pocket.
How long have you been doing this article? Like 20 years.
20 years. Doesn't mean I remember how many coins. I don't know. So the way that the person forms this belief is that they believe that they know who's going to get the job,
and they have good evidence for this belief.
Maybe they heard the boss say that they overheard the boss say that this person was going to get the job.
It's Smith and Jones.
Yeah, Smith is the guy who has the belief. Jones is the guy who believes good. Yeah. Okay. So like a steel trap. So the.
Oh, welcome to my life, y'all.
So Smith has really good reason to believe that Jones is going to get the job.
Yes.
He's justified clearly in believing that.
Yes.
And remember, whether something's true or not, you could still be, you could be justified in believing something that later turns out to be false. That just means you had a really good reason to think that it's true. That's all that means. So think about like past scientific theories that, people have great evidence for something, and then new scientists come along and show that the old theory, wasn't true. Doesn't mean people weren't justified in believing the old one. So he has really good reason to believe that Jones is going to get the job.
That's what he said.
And somehow...
And he also knows that Jones has 10 coins in his pocket. That's a little creepy, but...
Okay. I've got a scenario. Here's how he could know.
Yeah.
Okay. So... maybe this is one of the kinds of job interviews where you don't just go in and do the interview and you leave, but like you hang around all day, you meet with different people, it's not just a one-off. And so maybe he's like in between the initial interview and he's supposed to meet some other manager or something, and he's in the break room and he wants to get something out of the vending machine. And
this is a boring example.
And no. Hear me out. And Smith sees him taking all the change out of his pocket and trying to see if it's going to be enough to get the Coke or whatever out of the vending machine. And he sees him take all the coins out of his pocket, see that it's not enough. Maybe he says, "Hey, you, right?" He probably doesn't know Smith's name. "Do you have any change?" And he just lies and says no because he doesn't like this guy. He thinks he's going to get the job. Maybe he thinks they should be promoted internally, and so he sees the guy put all it back. So this is a scenario where he could actually know how many coins are in his pocket.
I'm gonna give you my scenario. The mafia is after Jones.
Wow, this is already much more dramatic.
And the guy who has come to give Jones his final warning takes Jones out onto the balcony and holds him upside down by his legs. And as he's shaking him, all his coins come out of his pocket. Okay, then Mafia guy leaves. He's made his point. And then he leaves, and then Smith goes downstairs with Smith and Jones go downstairs together so that Smith can help Jones gather up the coins that fell out of his pocket when he was being dangled over the balcony.
See, Gettier doesn't specify, so we don't know which of these things is how it happened. But...
Weren't you just watching a Sopranos episode right before we came in here?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So, is that where you got the idea?
Probably.
So, anyway, so one of these things happened, and somehow or another, Smith knows how many coins Jones has in his pocket, and he has really good reason to believe that Jones is going to get the job. So he infers that
the man who is going to get the job has 10 coins in his pocket.
Plot twist. Jones.
Because once you've got your, Jones is going to get the job, and Jones has 10 coins in his pocket, you put those together. Jones is the common denominator there. So the man who will get the job, the man who has 10 coins in his pocket, same guy.
Yeah. So then the plot twist comes, and it's not as exciting as the mafia thing, but it
never is.
The plot twist is that Jones does not get the job. Smith gets the job.
What?
Also,
there's more.
There's more.
Do tell.
Now, Smith never tried to use the vending machine that day, so he had no reason.
And Smith is not in debt to the mob.
Right. So Smith had never bothered to check the coins in his pocket, but he also happened to have exactly 10 coins in his pocket.
Oh my goodness.
So it was in fact true that the man who will get the job has 10
coins in his pocket.
All right.
Wow. So what did this all tell you?
Checks all of Ayer's boxes.
Checks all the boxes. So the sentence that we're looking at is, the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. Is that true?
Yep.
Yes, it is. Does Smith believe that it's true? Yes, he does. Is he justified in this belief? Yes, he is. Because he is justified in the two beliefs that, it's like they have a little belief baby. Like, he had his belief that Jones will get the job, and he had his belief that Jones has 10 coins in his pocket. You put them together, and they form a little belief baby that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. So it's true. He believes it. He's justified in his belief. But do we want to say that he knew that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket?
Really doesn't seem like it.
It really doesn't.
Yeah. And so Gettier's other example is along the same lines.
We gotta do a little logic first. Do you want to do this one?
Sure. So the little logic that we have to do for his other example is that if you're that if it's true, if any statement is true, right? So any statement X is true, then any statement X or Y is also true. So, for example, if
make this one good.
Well, I was just gonna do something with like holding up fingers, but sure.
Holding up fingers.
All right. So if it's true that Tony Soprano has to whack his own cousin,
no spoilers.
Well, I said if. then it's true that either Tony Soprano has to whack his own cousin or he has to whack his uncle.
All right.
So then, so the idea is, because all it takes for an or statement to be true is that one or the other of them is true. So
if I were to say to you, my name is Jennifer, or I'm a serial killer, that's a true sentence.
Even though I'm pretty sure, and I hope that the second part is not true. So
all you need is one, and this is usually how we use or in real life. Do you have coffee or do you have tea? What's in your cup? Is it coffee or tea? All you need is one for I have coffee or I have tea to be true. You don't need a mix of tea, coffee.
Right. So
anything that you add on to X with or It doesn't matter if that thing is true. It doesn't matter if that thing is false. It doesn't matter whether you know if that thing is true or false. All that matters is that when X is true, the whole thing is true.
Yeah. If X is true, X or Y is true.
Right.
So this brings us back to Smith and Jones.
Smith and Jones. Which one is? Oh, this is the car. This is the car and Barcelona. So, Smith believes that his friend Jones owns a Ford. The entire time of their friendship, Jones has owned a Ford. Smith has seen Jones driving in his Ford. Smith was just walking down the street and Jones stopped and offered him a ride. He was in a Ford, so he thinks, okay, Jones owns a Ford. I'm pretty justified in believing that. And then later on, he's sitting around and he's thinking about his friend Brown, who likes to travel the world, but he never tells people where he is. And he's like, oh, Brown, I miss Brown so much. Where could Brown be? So he forms these ideas, you know, Brown is, he could be here, he could be there. And then he starts making up these sentences. God knows why.
Oh,
but he says
maybe he just took a logic class and, you know.
He wants to practice or.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So he says Brown is in, or no. He says Jones owns a Ford or Brown is in Brussels. Jones owns a Ford or Brown is in Brest-Litovsk, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing disastrously. Jones owns a Ford or Brown is in Barcelona.
Plot
Take
twist.
it away!
Jones
does not own a Ford!
He just gave it up probably to settle his debts to the mafia.
Right? And now he's driving a rental car, which is a Ford.
But, by wild coincidence,
Brown is in Barcelona!
So, it's true.
It is true that Brown is in Barcelona. So the sentence, Jones owns a Ford, or Brown is in Barcelona, what did we say we needed for a sentence like that to be true? One part. Only one part has to be true. And it doesn't matter which side it's on, whether it's on the left side or the right side of the or, doesn't matter. So even though Jones owns a Ford is not true, Brown is in Barcelona is true, and therefore that makes the whole sentence true.
So, what these cases have in common is that, yeah, it checks all the boxes. The person believes the sentence, it's true, and they have a good reason to believe the sentence, it's justified. But the fact that it's true and the fact that it's justified just seems to be a crazy coincidence. And that doesn't feel like it should count as knowledge. So I know that these examples, especially the one about the Ford in Barcelona, also the pockets one in a different way, but especially that second one, I know that like some of the details of these sentences are a little bit weird, but I think you can get Gettier's point across with maybe simpler examples. So, for example, long time ago, you know, when the world was young, it used to be that, yeah, I remember this, you know, that it used to be that the only way we could tell time was by looking at clocks.
Wait, I thought when you were young it was a sundial.
Yeah. So
this was in your adult life. You looked at a clock. Yeah. When you were a child, you looked at the sundial. I got it.
So imagine that like I'm going into a classroom, and it's a classroom I've never been in before. It's the first day of class, and I'm maybe the class starts at 4:00, and I'm worried. I'm worried that I might be late. That's never happened in real life, but you know, it's. But I'm worried that this will be the first time that's happened, and so I look at the clock on the wall, and I say, "Oh, whew, it's 3:57, so I'm not late." Plot twist. The clock broke exactly 24 hours ago. So it is 3:57. My belief that it's 3:57, and I believe it. It's true, and it's justified. Like back in this era that I'm talking about, this is the only way that anybody was ever justified in believing, in having beliefs about what time it was, because we weren't carrying phones in our pockets. So,
yeah, I mean, now we know that we are never justified in looking at a classroom clock and thinking that we know what time it is.
But if you could see how that checks all three of the boxes, but it really doesn't feel like that should count as knowledge.
It really doesn't.
Then you get Gettier's point.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, I'd say now you know where that phrase comes from.
So twice a day, you will have a justified true belief if you look at the clock and say, hey, it's 3:57. Twice a day, that'll be a justified true belief. But you don't have knowledge.
And in the decades since Gettier put out the paper, was translated back to English, and was published in more mainstream journals, and this started to really bother people who work on epistemology, which, remember, is the area of philosophy having to do with knowledge. That people started to really see the problem and say, oh crap, I guess either there's got to be some way to explain why these examples don't count as justified true belief, or else that the justified true belief theory of knowledge must be wrong. And so people have come up with all kinds of different answers to this. Oftentimes they'll either say, they'll have some view where there's maybe a fourth condition for knowledge, or maybe it's something other than justification, or maybe there's some really complicated condition for what counts to be justified, so this doesn't count. There are tons of different ways of trying to get around it, but I think for right now we're not really worried about that. We're just kind of worried about seeing what the problem is, and seeing this as an example for how you do philosophy, that how you can argue against a theory.
And what I find interesting about this, we had a good definition of knowledge. Ayer gave us something good, and then somebody had to go mess with it, and now we're like, oh, so maybe this definition doesn't work, but we're giving it up. We're giving up this definition because of our intuitions. So and nothing guarantees that our intuitions are correct. So should we be giving up this perfectly good definition on the basis of our intuitions, or should we be forcing our intuitions into the service of this definition? Should we just be like, no, our intuitions are wrong?
Well, what makes a good definition?
Well, I mean, just a useful, that had been into place for a long time. Why should we get rid of it on the basis of something that we don't?
But is it?
Let's not get, look, we're not here to do all this. This is an intro level class, bruh.
Isn't the reason that we thought it was a good definition that it seemed intuitively right?
Yeah.
All right, so it's intuitions all around. Nothing, no getting away from.
Sure. If you like some intuitions, you pay attention to them, but then you ignore others if they're problematic.
Well, that seems like a weird way to do things.
So anyway, yeah. So that's the question that I like to ask: is our intuitions enough to ditch a perfectly serviceable definition? Because in real life, that is a perfectly serviceable definition.
Yeah, I mean, 99.999% of the time, anything that meets that definition is going to match up with what's knowledge. But it seems like what the counterexamples show is that this can't be this can't be what makes it knowledge, because there are these things that meet the definition, but they don't count as knowledge. All right.
Yeah.
Good place to cut fruit?
I suppose so.
Okay. Hope this was fun, or more fun than just watching me monologuing into the camera.
Hope this wasn't too painful for y'all.
Wow. All right. See ya.